Please note that in this show, you might hear graphic descriptions or language that may not be appropriate for everyone. Listener discretion advised. Welcome to Parentless Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford. On this show, we're going to be speaking with others who have experienced the loss of one or both of their parents or parental figures. As we heard in episode 12 with Louisa Velarde, being parentless is like an island, and I don't know how to swim. Thank you for being my life jacket.
I want to say hello to everyone. My name is Brent. I'm currently located in Byron Bay, Australia. If anyone who's familiar with that, I'm 35. I've got a beautiful wife, two beautiful boys, and I do a bit of landscaping as my business, and I also dive into the death industry within my community with working people through death, dying, and loss and bereavement. That's pretty much a good overview of me right now.
So we're gonna get right into it. I know very little about you, and I found you on Instagram, and I saw one post, and I was hooked. Let's give your Instagram handle, and everybody should definitely go follow you.
Yeah, so it's the Human Occurrence. And basically for me, the Human Occurrence is just an expression of my experience in death, dying, and loss. But it's just a platform where I can just, have no license to what I should and shouldn't be doing. And, I give a bit of grief support and just a bit of my own insight to what I conceive to be, the process of dying, death, and what's that all about. So it's just a creative outlet to me.
Tell me, why are we here? Who was your person?
So my person was my mother. Her name was Jules. And basically it was the 7th of February 2020. She passed away from liver cancer. It was neuroendocrine cancer, which was a really different type of cancer to any normal form of cancer. It doesn't show up in your white blood cell count, so it was hard to detect. And she got diagnosed with that roughly 6 months before she passed. So it was an expected death, but it was unexpected from her diagnosis. It was really kind of out of the blue. She was a healthy woman. She didn't smoke, drink, party, anything like that. But I guess it was, there was some signs that was, be alarming to us all. She used to get pretty lightheaded cooking breakfast, and Mum was really, she was really alternative in the way of doing her health. So she didn't really like mainstream doctors, which kind of wasn't the best thing, I think, coming into it. But I think it just got to a point where she was hesitant to go to the doctor. And I think on some level she knew, I think, subconsciously something was happening there. So, I just gave Mum the ultimatum. I said, Mum, I love you so much, and I'm your son, and there's a lot of things going on right now that people are worried about you. I said, you either book yourself into the doctors or I will do that for you. So I kind of pushed her in a way, and then she's like, okay, here I go to the doctors. And then, a couple of weeks later, they found a tumor. And then it was about 6 weeks in total until they diagnosed her. And she was terminal. The tumor was the size of about a mango. It was in her liver, and yeah, it was a battle. It was a battle, and it was a journey. But we tried all sorts of treatment. We tried alternative stuff to high doses of THC, to oxygen therapy, high doses of vitamin C, and basically nothing was working, to a point where we got her on chemo. And then, if anyone's familiar with chemo, it pretty much kills everything good and bad. And that's kind of when she started to really go downhill, and she ended up passing from actually liver failure, and she died at home. We bought a home and had that journey there with her. She was in the hospital about 5 weeks. And I have I had a background in studying death. So I knew, you know, I understood the process as one goes through when the body starts to break down. So I knew Mum was dying, where it took a little bit more time for our whole family to get on the same page, because there's a real fine line when you're dealing with someone who's dying and you're wanting to, you know, keep them alive, but actually being realistic into knowing that, hey, regardless of what you want to do or, you know, your thoughts about it, you know, she was dying. So we all got on the same page, and then we got Mum home because, you know, she didn't want to die in a hospital. And, you know, so we brought her home, and she spent, as soon as we got her home, within roughly 48 hours, she fell into a coma, and then she passed maybe, you know, a day after that. And then we laid with her for 3 days within the house. I built a coffin, I got a cold plate ready, and we started the grieving process then. Well, I actually started the grieving process a lot earlier, but we mourned with Mum in our house, which I think is, you know, if anyone has the ability or capacity to do that, whatever country you're kind of tuning into right now, I think that's a really great way to process your grief and process your loss. I think that it can happen really quickly, even if it is expected. So, you know, it gives your mind a bit of time to catch up, and it kind of sets you up quite well. I find, as painful and grueling as it is to be laying next to the most important person in your life who's passed, there's a lot of magic that can happen within those moments. So yeah, it was painful. It was all of it. It was multi-layered, and so, as I'm sure you're aware of, Steph, you know.
Is there anything, I mean, you told us how that helped you on your journey. I don't know, anything that you want to say that someone like me that knows nothing about this process might want to know?
I guess what I will say is, like, you know, the more you can educate yourself, and I'm sure it is without a doubt a possibility to do something like that in your country, but I think the more you educate yourself with such an avoidant subject is going to help anyone. You know, I think that a lot of people don't know their options when it comes to their time, and they don't even want to look at death. So when it's happening, it's like you're truly missing a lot of precious moments that you could really be, you know, soaking up because of the avoidance to death in your life, you know. So I would say, you know, the most healthiest thing anyone could do is really question their mortality, you know, really think about what happens when I die, you know, regardless of where you go or what your belief system is, but the actual logistics with your family, you know, because I just know for you know, a lot of friends that I've had and my experiences in the death industry is that, you know, people don't prepare for this. So they get thrown into a choppy sea, and all they're looking for is some security, some familiarity to the whole situation. So I think that if you can educate yourself in your options, understanding that, you know, funeral directors are not the only option, and you can do it, as far as I'm aware. Well, you can definitely do it in Australia, but you can't, you know, there's options there. So it's gonna help your process, you know, instead of, you know, shove it into the closet and then shit, you know, I'll deal with that when, you know, your whole world is turning upside down. I feel like that's crazy. I really feel like that's crazy. So for anyone who's tuning in, who is, you know, either a griever or you're going to be a griever eventually, my wisdom of gold here would be question your mortality and see where that kind of takes you. And that's not saying just because you're questioning your mortality doesn't mean you're like waving the white flag and thinking that, you know, you're going to manifest your death. You know, that's just crazy. You know, that's I think another level of avoidance of like, let's not go there because you'll be manifesting, you know, something that's going to come true. That's just a load of crap, you know, like, but to actually sit with yourself and, you know, take yourself into that realm, you know, I think it's really healthy. It makes your life so much richer. Everything, you know, you don't have to, you know, be traumatized by death, lose somebody, to actually really get some skin in the game. And I think it's just a really good investment for you, your family, your loved ones, everyone around you. It's a great gift if you can have the courage to go there, you know. So, and there's a huge amount of support online. Like, you know, you've got, look what we're doing now. We're connected by death. There's a whole community of people that are grieving and have got really amazing tools around these profound bits of your life. So investigate it.
I like that point of view, and I like that you bring it up. I'm kind of in the camp of, you know, the people who did push it away, and so now this is me kind of coming into it, but still like a baby griever, even though it's been a very long time. And so I really appreciate the different points of view that I can gather here. And as Americans, we don't take time. You know, we go back to work in 3 days, and there you go. Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. So I do want to ask you about the coffin that you made. I did see that picture. I thought it was very beautiful. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I guess it was, you know, when I knew, you know, 6 weeks out before Mum died, I knew she was actively dying. So I just had a real strong sense of just being protective of her. Like, I didn't really want any funeral director coming in because I'm pretty much one myself. And I just wanted to really honor Mum the best way me and my family could. So, you know, I've got a construction background anyway. And, you know, through my studies, I knew that this was an option, and it was the first time I could really embody this practice. So, you know, there's some requirements in terms of coffins and in terms of the guidelines you got to follow when you get someone buried or cremated. So that was fairly straightforward. But for me, it was a process of, you know, because I started grieving a lot earlier than some of my other family members. But that for me was, you know, building my mum's coffin, man. That was just so amazing in my journey and you know, taking me to a place of really accepting what was going on and just being really real in a situation where, you know, you've just, regardless of your experience in a situation like that, I feel like when someone so significant dies, from my experience, your body will go into fight or flight on some level, and things will speed up. For me, it just slowed things down. It kind of taught me how to chop wood and carry water again. You know, putting every screw into the box was another memory that was, you know, a memory of my mother and what we did together and the person she was, our relationship. And it was, you know, it was the hardest fucking thing I've probably done in my life, you know, thinking, you know, my brain would come in and go, you know, logically, you know, they would say, you know, are you sure that your mum's dying? You're building a coffin now 6 weeks out. Your family's probably not on the same page as you yet. Are you positive she's dying? And I'm like, you know, that's just a logical mind. So I think that, you know, I just had to remind myself to really stay out of my head, because I think in any situation in life, if you're dictated by your mind, you're going to be chasing your tail for a lot of years. So I just remind myself to stay in my heart space, and just kind of feel everything. And that's kind of what I did with the process of building the coffin. It was just stayed in my heart space. I really leaned into the discomfort that I was feeling. And I think that, along with the process of building it, really gave me the platform to kind of move. As you know, I kind of felt like I was stuck in the mud anyway. Like, it's such an intense situation. You know, having hindsight now is a beautiful thing, but in the moments you kind of don't feel like you're progressing very well. But having some tools around that, but you know, building my mum's coffin, you know, it was a very proud moment for me, because I knew that, you know, I spoke to my mum about it. And then, you know, for my family, participating in that while we'll laying with my mother at home, we painted the coffin, and, you know, we wrote messages on it. My sons were there. You know, my sons were along the process around my mum when, you know, she died. Not when she died, but when, you know, her body was there. She was around that. They were painting things on the coffin. Like, for, you know, for the process of the grief, it was just, you know, it's movement. You know, you don't want anything to be stagnant. in my experience, you know, in your body. So movement's a powerful tool, and creating's a powerful tool along that process. So yeah, the process for me with my mother and building the coffin it's very hard to explain in words, but I hope I did it justice.
On your Instagram, you have a post, and you had a very beautiful writing that went with it. And when I read that, all I could really think of was like, this is a labor of love. If you visit Brent's account, please find this post and read it. It was very good to read, for sure.
Yeah.
You told me that your mom's name was Julie.
Correct. I am the son of Julie Phipps. Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? Yeah, I think you know, when you put I think people, you know, have got to realize how much power there is when you put breath on your words. You know, like you can't just be running around saying anything. You know, you're putting this vibration out into the world. So absolutely, speaking of the people that have passed, it's really powerful.
All right. Well, let me hit you with this one. It's one that we have to ask. We have to talk about. We know what happens. How do you feel like the death of your mother has impacted your life?
Well, massively. Obviously, you know, I went through some post-traumatic transformation. So I think a lot of people who are tuning into this, and especially yourself, Steph, is that once you experience death, you can't not know that now. It's like a switch that goes on, and that motherfucker is staying on for your whole life. You can't just turn it off. It's like once it's on, it's on. And from my experience and what it's done to me, it's kind of really, you know, it gave me pretty much instant access to my feelings. Now, I used to work on myself quite a bit through therapy and other modalities, but, you know, the gifts from death, man, they're just incredible. You know, they gave me, you know, I started writing a lot more. I never really, you know, openly did a lot of writing, but, you know, it gave me the ability to kind of express myself in a creative form through that. I bang on a bit about how rich it's made my life, but the essence of it is that it gave me a new found platform of presence in my life. You know, like I don't walk around and kind of, you know, moan and bitch about my life. You know, in some ways I probably did, but, you know, sometimes you kind of need a healthy slap in the face. And I think death for me just really, you know, number one, I question my own mortality, thinking shit, it could end any time. But there's a whole thing, you know, a whole toolbox of gifts that lie within yourself that really are there for you to discover. So if anyone has, you know, really discovering themselves through death, there is a whole bunch of gifts there that come with grief, and grief can be a really powerful tool, man. This is not something to misjudge here. Grief is just as painful and multi-layered and simple it is, it also comes with a set of gifts. So I think that if you're able to really lean into it and allow yourself to feel fucked up, like, you know, not many people want to really sit with that, you know, because they think, oh, fuck, you know, I'm fucked up. What's everyone going to think? All this, you know, this is just the mind. Get out of the mind. Stay in your heart. You're allowed to be feeling all these things. And there's so many gifts. So for me, it was, you know, a newfound presence in life, writing. It just, every moment became a lot richer. And I'm so, you know, my mother, in my eyes, was the ultimate sacrifice for me and my family to really evolve in some sense. I think there was a greater plan behind what was happening here, and I'm a believer in that. So she didn't die for no reason. But I'm still unraveling those gifts in the process there. So, you know, forever a white belt, Steph. You know, I don't know if you ever get to a point, I'm not really that, you know, do you ever get to a point where you're a black belt with grief? I don't think so, you know, because it's like, grief's not going to end. You're going to be living with grief for your whole life. And if you think that you know, grief's just going to turn off and go away because it's something bad, then you've got to really kind of check your perspective on your life, because grief is, you know, if someone's died and you're grieving, that grief is going to be with you until you die. But it's not all negative. It's not all negative. There's so many gifts involved with it. You just gotta hang on, right? Hang on as much as you can. Have a good old seatbelt on.
That's right. Did anything change in the way that you parent after the death of your mom?
Yeah, I think so. I changed, so therefore everything else changed from the death of my mother. Slowing down, I think, slowing down with my kids and really practicing how good of a father I am to be a listener and not wish any moments away. So I think that, you know, if I was to think about anything right now with how I change as a parent, but I think once again it goes down to having that new level of presence with my kids and really understanding that, you know, not wishing, you know, kids are crazy, you know, they're just like, in my eyes, they're just a complete reflection of your own inner child in a lot of ways and what's going on in your own inner world. So, you know, they're a great lesson. They're a powerful lesson. So for me, slowing things down and just living a simpler life, you know, and listening to my kids, really honing in on their needs and where they're at with their grief too, because they're also, you know, sailing along that sea as well next to me in their own set of grief at such a young age. So yeah, everything's changed. I'd be naive to think, you know, it didn't. So yeah, my parenting changed, but just presence, being there with them and being simple, just a simple life and hearing them, I think is the biggest thing for me. You know, I was so naive for kids. Shit, I thought I was like some black belt emotionally. I had it all sorted out before death, kids, all that. And then it was just a fucking tornado came through my life. And I realized, you know, like I said about the whole white belt thing, I had yet to get my white belt. And it was most the humbling experience to be, you know, to play witness to birth. And because my two boys were born at home, in our living room, which was really wild, just to play witness to my wife and the birth of my sons. And then also, you know, like the to play witness to death and the similarities there. That sort of thing is that, you know, like I said before, once you know that sort of thing, those lessons, they're real rites of passages. You can't unknow them, and they're really significant and profound. And holy moly, they're juicy ones in life lessons. That's for sure.
If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please consider sharing the show with a friend or rating and reviewing wherever you're listening right now. This will help get the word out about the show, and if one person can be helped by listening to someone's story here, that is amazing. If you would like to share your story with me, you can visit the website at www.backhomemedia.com/parentlesspodcast. You can also email me at parentlesspodcast@gmail.com. Another way to get a hold of me is to find me on Instagram or Facebook, also at Parentless Podcast. And lastly, if you're a phone person, please leave me a voicemail at 623-396-6069. If you love the show and you'd like to help with any special projects that might go on at Parentless Podcast or just be privy to some special extras, go ahead and visit patreon.com/parentlesspodcast. Did you find yourself, I mean, even when you became a father and your mom was there to be a grandma to them, did you find yourself kind of just maybe understanding your mom a little bit more just by having your kids?
Possibly, yeah. Possibly. It was, you know, I guess it was, you know, I'd look at the moments when my boys were with her and go, wow, I wonder what that feels like to be in, you know, when I'm going to be a grandfather, if I make it that long, you know, like, and what that's like. But understanding mum was, yeah, you don't, birth changes you, like we've talked about, and my mother, she was such a influential part of the process of when we were having kids. She was so hands-on and nurturing and all these things. So, when she left, there was a big gap there. There was a huge gap. But understanding my mum, yeah, without a doubt, I guess, looking at it now, without a doubt, it gave me a greater understanding of, her position in my life and her as a woman and a grandmother, a wife, daughter, all of it.
Is there one thing or anything that you would say to your mom now if you could?
I actually read that one. That was a good one, Steph. I like that. Hindsight's a beautiful thing, right? When you come out of a lesson and you've learned a lot, I think that you're always going to, in my eyes, you're going to kind of look back and go, knowing what I know now, I would have maybe dissected things a bit more, but I've got no regrets with where I was at with Mum and the conversations I've had. But if you were to really ask me that question, I don't regret anything, but yeah, I'd probably go back and like dissect some things a bit more, because I was in fight or flight then, I was doing the best I could and trying to survive a really foreign moment that I've never had walked through. Until you walk through it and embody that practice, then it's another thing. So, I'll dissect some things with her a bit more. But in that moment, like I said, you just do the best you can. And my family was doing the best you can, and I was doing the best I can, and my mother was, without a doubt, doing the best she could as well. So we were very lucky and fortunate the way it kind of unfolded for us. It could have been a lot grittier. And I've had some close friends that have gone through something similar, but it's been over years. So it's not like one size fits all with this sort of stuff, Steph. As you know, how do you put words onto that? But, I'd love to go back and talk to Mum about some other stuff, but I don't regret what happened.
Sure. And there's two sides of that question, kind of. So, even in your case, there's nothing that you regret or anything like that. Do you ever think, I need to pick up the phone and call my mom, or I wish I could. So in that aspect as well, I mean, if you could have a conversation with Mom.
I do. It's kind of like retraining yourself after someone dies, because you instinctively, depending on what role they played in your life, you do go to, pick up, because Mum was on my favorites in my phone list. She'd be the first one I'd call about anything, business, life, whack, it was Jules, so it's like retraining yourself going, and that's just other layers of grief when you're really going for it and you're in the car and you're like, oh, call Mum, and you're like, fuck, Mum's dead, and it's another realization, it's another layer, it's another level to your grief, and it's so unpredictable, that stuff, because it can really put you on your ass. You think, oh shit, I'm doing really good today with my grief, last couple of weeks has been good, and then you either drive past a spot where you used to have lunch with her or have some significant moment with her, or try to call her because it's just like a human reaction, and then you don't, and then you're left, like your legs get taken from under you. So it's like grief is the greatest lesson, it's crazy how multi-layered it is in my eyes, like I said, you can go fine for a couple of weeks and then whack, for me, I was really surprised on how physical it was for me, and the physical effects from grief. And I think that's really, for the grievers that are tuning in, I think that's a really valuable lesson, to actually just give yourself some space and understand that these emotions have physical consequences on your body, and you kind of need to ride these waves. So if you feel depleted, if you're bedridden, you feel all these things, it's okay. It's not like it's a bad thing at all. It's just that, you know, it has layers to it, and it has consequences on the physical body, and you just gotta just ride the wave and keep things simple, and for God's sake, just give yourself space and time to do all this sort of stuff, especially when it comes to, you know, if you've got to lay in bed for a day, then honor that, honor you. I think too much, you know, people will try to work this stuff out, and it's not there to work out. You know, don't go into your head. You know, it's your brain is, people got to understand your brain is so fucking intelligent that it will come up with all these different alternatives and what you should be doing, how you should be dealing with it, all these attachment things of how things should look. So you just got to practice getting out of your head and into your body and just allowing yourself to feel it all, as grueling as it is. From my experience, that's the only way that I've really learned to move forward or get some sort of progress is by feeling it and not bypassing an emotion. And if you're struggling with that, then my advice would be seek some professional help. And it's okay to feel fucked up. A lot of people are fucked up, and that's fine. That doesn't mean you're lesser than anyone or whatever else that your mind wants to come up with a label, because it's all crap. It's fine to feel that. So if you're struggling with it, get some professional help. Work out your tool set to combat these things that will come flying at you unexpectedly.
So let's talk about your tool set. You've mentioned some of it to us, but tell me more.
So I get a lot of results from like journaling. Movement's a really big one for me, and sounding. So I like to move my body. I don't have any sort of, you know, I try not to have like a set outcome with it, like, oh, this is what I should be doing. But I move my body to move emotion. And then I'll do the same with that, with sounding. And sounding could sound like, you know, a wild Balinese monkey to, you know, a cattle dog, whatever. Like you don't have attachment to it, but it's moving energy out of your body. And then lastly, a huge thing for me is breath work. Breath work is the bridge to a place of stillness. And if you can really dedicate yourself to a ritual in that, I can guarantee you that it might take some time to get to a place of stillness, but it will turn your system off, and you know your nervous system is getting so challenged and worked through the whole process of, you know, death, dying, and loss. So to have tools there that really help you unlock and move this stuff is vital to your health, and vital to progressing. You know, you can't expect anything to be done without some sort of bridge. I think this is just an unrealistic way of kind of thinking along things like, I'm not going to do anything, I'll go to psychiatrist and that's it, or a therapist, or whatever that person is for you, and that's it. Like, you've got to put in the work, regardless if you got the energy to do it now or what. And you don't even need to have the energy. You could be lying on your back and create 10 minutes a day, and you could be lying on your back and just crying your eyes out, but whatever, at least you're showing up for you. And that's the point of this whole thing, right? Is that showing up for yourself, no one else, not your kids, not your husband, not your wife, not any sort of person you think you need to be there for, but you. You know, I think once you start putting you first, I think that's when significant change in some form will start moving, is when you start to put, you know, show up for you. And that's a big one for a lot of people. And that's, you know, for me, it's kind of like I feel like I'm not getting anywhere. And then out of nowhere, you're like, oh, wait, hang on a second. You know, I'm doing breath work and it's only taking me 5 minutes now to become still, where before it was 20 minutes of breath work. And then finally I'd come to a place where I could feel my nervous system drop and all these things. So drop the expectation and just don't think that you've got to be some fucking guru to be doing any sort of personal development stuff. There's not a rule book for grief. There's not a rule book for any of this stuff, you know. So the main concept here, guys, is show up for you. That is it. And whatever form that is, you know, try just to, like I said, even if it's 5 minutes a day of showing up and it's painful, do it for you because it will help you.
Yeah, that's important. We talk about showing up for other people, but definitely.
Yeah. Well, until you show up for yourself, like this is, my mother realized this on her deathbed, and it just comes very common to especially women and mothers that they'll put everyone else first before themselves. And what happens there is that my mum, right at the end, she realized that, hey, she's been doing everything for everyone else on an empty tank, and that is not sustainable. And she got to a point where she was like, this is why I'm dying. This is the lesson here, you know. So, you know, you can't do anything. You can't drive a car without any oil, coolant, fuel. It's going to break down. Like, you can't love wholeheartedly in every moment without having yourself full of love. Like, you've got to put yourself first. And I say this to a lot of people, and they're like, how do you know, who do you put yourself first in your life? Your wife, your kids? I'm like, hell no, I put myself first. How am I meant to be a father to my kids if my cup's not full? How I, you know, self-care for me? How am I meant to be a good husband to my wife if I'm not there for myself? This is completely unrealistic. And I think it's like a really old condition with men and women that they've got to like look after everyone else and then they come last. But point of the story here, guys, is that that's unsustainable. And I guarantee your physical body, mental and spiritual self will turn to crap eventually. And if it's not in this life, you'll learn it. Whatever your belief system is, my belief system is eventually you'll learn it in another life or whatever that is, but it will come back down. So put yourself first. I think that's a huge one, Steph.
I'm working on that. We'll see.
You know, but you know, it's tough. It's tough. It's tough. Like I said to you, it's a constant practice. I felt like I've got a little bit better with it, but you can get carried away with life, chores, work, earning money, all these things that us humans have got to do to sustain a life. And then you're like, oh, fuck, now I've got to do something for myself. Like, It's tough. I get it. There's no step-by-step process with this, but if you can just put aside, even if it's 3 minutes a day where you shut the doors and be with yourself, it's a start.
I don't want to get away too much from your mom because we do talk, you know, we have to talk about the loss part, but then she lived a whole life before you lost her. So I would like to hear if you have like a funny story about your mom or if she had a favorite joke. Is there anything that you have like that?
Joke or oh look, my mum, I don't know if there probably is a significant moment. My mum was very dry. She had a dry sense of humor, and she was quite, you know, quick-witted, and she was a shapeshifter. And what I mean by a shapeshifter is she was able to, you know, morph into different groups. You know, you could put her into people who are 70 and above. She could morph into that. She could like morph into so many different things. But my mum generally was she was very optimistic, and she was very, she always saw the light about stuff. So we were always, you know, I got that off my mum and father. You know, I was just, you know, I'd rather have a joke and have a laugh. You know, I like that serotonin going through my body, right? That happiness, you know, that chemical is powerful. So mum was, I don't know if there was a significant moment, or there probably is, but mum was always up for a laugh. That was the beautiful thing about her. You know, in really intense and dark times, there was always, you know, honoring that, but at the end there'd be some lightness to it. And I think that's important, is keeping a lightness to your life with that. So she was a powerhouse. Jules was a real powerhouse.
Did Jules work?
She worked. Yeah, she wore a lot of hats throughout her life. She was very entrepreneurial. She did a lot of startups, and she built a lot of villas in Bali, and she was a hairdresser, a chef, interior designer. She was a farmer. you know, worm farmer. She did heaps of different stuff. She was
She was a worm farmer?
Yeah, so, you know, like 20 years ago in Australia, you could, and it's definitely still around, worms, but, you know, you could sell earthworms to make your soil fertile. So, you know, your mum and dad had a worm farm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. That's cool. I've never known anybody that actually like was around that. So
yeah, there's not too many people who were worm farmers. But, you know, we had a dairy farm. She was she could do anything, and that's what I mean about being a shapeshifter. She could really morph into, you know, she wore a lot of hats, which was cool. So there was nothing just in particular she did, but yeah, she was a great talent to this world.
I love that you named all of her jobs because you said that she was a powerhouse, and like all of those really like shows that picture. I think I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything like a smell, sight, taste, sound that would remind you of her?
Yeah, she loved burning sage a lot. That kind of brings back memories. She used to make these like this like pumpkin and ricotta puff pastry things. You know, I'm sure if I smelt them again, I'm like, oh shit, Jules is here. You know, but you know, she was a chef, so she was constantly cooking, and that was her love language, was to be able to cook for the people that she loved. So yeah, I think, you know, sage would definitely send off some memories, and the pumpkin ricotta puff pastry things. God damn, they were delicious.
Does your wife cook? Maybe she'll make some.
I'm glad you brought that up, Steph. She does cook, but, you know, I work a lot, and then she obviously looks after our boys a lot. So I actually do most of the cooking. But she is a great cook, but it's just creating space, you know. And I think when your kids are like, you know, my boys are 18 months and 3 years, you know, that's a crazy age where you're just divvying up your energy. So she cooks, but usually, like, you know, she'd be falling asleep cooking. So I'm like, babe, let me cook, because it's probably going to taste a bit better. No offense, Laura, but yeah, no, she cooks. She definitely has the cooking ability, for sure. Are you a good cook?
I mean, my husband would say the same thing, that it tastes better when he cooks. So,
right.
I generally I would work, and then he would watch our kids. Now we've been home for the past year, but so thanks to COVID, I've upped my skills a smidgen. But no, that would be interesting if you were to like look for the recipe and then try to make it and see like what that would do.
Without a doubt, my sisters are really good cooks. They got that off mum. They're older than me. Kylie is 38, I think 38. Amy is 40, but they're great cooks. Dad's a great cook. You know, they used to own cafes and do all that sort of shit. So they've all got they're definitely better than I am when it comes to cooking. Speaking of cooking and death, right? What I found along the whole process of you know, going through my mum's death is that death makes you very hungry, and you know, like, you forget to eat. I remember going, oh fuck, I haven't eaten in like since breakfast. And then when you get that, like, it's really grounding to eat. So if you can eat some good food along that way, I think it's beneficial for your body. That's for sure.
So you recently had your 1 year of your mom passing. Did you do anything, or do you plan to do anything to remember her either on that day or her birthday?
Yeah, I did a bit of a ceremony at home with my two boys and wife. It hit me for six, Steph. Like, I woke up and it was just like, oh fuck, here we go. Like, you know, thinking you're making progress with your grief, and then whack, your legs get taken out under you, and then here you are again in your vulnerability and your rawness of your heart being broken open. So it was a very tender time for me, and I just kind of honored myself and my process. I just let myself be there. but it was surprising to me. It was one thing that it surprised me a lot. I was thinking, oh yeah, 1 year coming up, you know, it's going to be what it is. And then until I woke up that morning, you know, I knew that it was just really significant, and just once again, it was just the you know, physical for me. When I experienced grief in its truest form, it was very physical. So I woke up and actually did a post straight away. It just came out. It's kind of like spewed out of me, this post. And then, you know, I just honored it. I took it slow. We did a lot of ritual, sat by a fire a lot. There's a lot of prayer happening, and just keeping it simple. But, you know, I just, I don't like to be around too many people. You know, fuck, who wants to talk to people when you're feeling shit? You know, like, you're just processing that. So, yeah, those moments, without a doubt, was surprising to me. And, you know, kind of just, my legs came out from under me, and there I was.
When was her birthday?
10th of March. 10th of March. And that was good. That was a bit lighter than the anniversary of her death. And that was, you know, you could say that was more of a celebration, you know, of her life, where, you know, the anniversary of her death was more honoring for me, honoring her death, and that process. But, her birthday was good. But still, you know, I feel pretty vulnerable there, and raw, and lots of physical pain. And so once again, just honoring my process, and just, you know, I'm not a drinker or anything like that. So just, you know, celebrating her in my own way was cool. Was really cool. It was, yeah, it was special. I enjoyed it, but, you know, it's like, I enjoyed it and I didn't enjoy it. There's so many emotions happening for me with that birthday and anniversary. As I'm sure you're aware, you know, you'd be going through something similar with your parents on some level, you know, like, when it happens, it's just, you know, you got to buckle up.
Yeah, and that was not very long after her passing, and then you had her birthday come up, you know.
Yeah. But hey, we're still here, aren't we, Steph? Hey, through all the loss and grief and all that, here we are.
Of course.
Which is amazing. And then, like I said at the start of the podcast, it's amazing that how many people you connect through with death. Look at us. You know, we wouldn't be having this conversation if we weren't in our current situation. So I'm really fortunate of that, and I'm fortunate I'm appreciative of the community that is arising through your grief and death. So who knows what the future holds for us, Steph? I'm sure this might not be the last podcast, hey?
Probably not. I want to ask, so as I was browsing your page, you had one of your own podcast videos up, and where you talked about the loss of consciousness, I believe. Actually, you weren't talking about it, but you were with a lady who was talking about it. She talked about the energy leaving the body, I guess. I thought I liked that concept. Can you tell us about
right, I got you. You mean the process of dying, like what my beliefs are? Well, yeah. So look, my beliefs is that, you know, consciousness is what is ultimately inside us, is an awareness, that our physical bodies is just our physical bodies. That's our humanness about us, but there's something greater that lies within. I believe that, you know, we get reincarnated. I believe that there's a greater plan that is happening. But from my understanding and playing witness to my mum dying, it's hard to put into words. But, you know, from seeing my mum take her last breaths, there was definitely such a profound stillness in the room when her consciousness left. And from what I felt was that, you know, I don't exactly miss my mother. I miss her humanness. I miss the simple things about her humanness, because right now I'm able to connect with her consciousness, you know, and that's one thing that I never thought was possible through death and all, you know, death, birth, rebirth, all that, is that the ability to connect with my mother still after she had passed was there's no word for it. So, you know, when I was playing witness to my mum dying, and when she left her body, there was a stillness in the room. There was like an awe in the room. There was a feeling that no word will do justice to with that. And that's very similar to what I witnessed when my boys were born, when my boys came into this world, when consciousness came into the body, and there they were. It was like a stillness. It was like, holy hell, like something greater is happening here. And some of the similar things too with that is, you know, near-death experiences, which I've had one, and there's that stillness that plays out again. There's a connection there between it. So yeah, the death thing is just, you know, I never thought with mum leaving, I thought all connection would stop. But that's what my brain was telling me. So once again, I was, oh shit, I'm in my brain again, but not in my heart center. So dropping into that, you know, I can access my mother all the time. So I don't miss mum, but I miss her humanness. I miss her physical form. I miss her jokes and all that. But actually connecting with mum, I'm still doing that. So that gives me strength. In terms of the near-death experience, I had one about 6 weeks ago, and it was an very odd situation. I was actually going to get a tattoo, and it just finished raining, and I jumped on the highway from Byron heading north, and there was a semi-trailer in my inside lane, a double semi, and I hate fucking being near semis when I'm driving. I think anyone driving near a semi and it's close, you know, it's 2-lane highway, you just, you know, it's not the most comfortablest thing to be doing. So I progressed to get in front of the semi, which I did. And then just before, you know, I was about 20 meters, I was in the right-hand lane, semi was in the left-hand lane. I was about 20 meters in front of the semi. There was a crossing on the highway where you can come from one road and go into a medium strip to head south. And this P-plater, I'm not sure if you've got P-platers in the States, but a P-plater is like is one above a learner. So they've just kind of got their license. A young driver, a mother was in there, and she came out in front of, she misjudged the gap from me and the semi and came out in front of us. So I had a choice to either, you know, at 110 kilometers, I don't know what that is in miles, probably 80 or 90 miles. I had a choice to either like T-bone her into her door, and there was absolutely no way in the truck I was driving, the speed I was doing, that she was going to survive that hit. So instinctively I sped up to, you know, to get around the front end of her, and I ended up actually getting in past her, but she clipped the back of my truck. And I span around a couple of times and then hit the guardrail. And then when I hit the guardrail, I kind of spun to my left, and that's when the semi did the exact same thing around the back end of her. And the semi, it pretty much missed me by, I reckon, about 300 or 400 mil. So those moments of seeing the semi coming, once again, things slowed down. There was a stillness there. My rational mind couldn't keep up. So there was no fear. There was no sort of anything negative that I could keep up with. There was just that profound feeling again. And I was like, fuck, I'm here again. I'm here. Here I am, where I was feeling it with mum. I was feeling it with Laura when she was giving birth. Here I am in that moment again. And then I was lucky enough to get out, and the semi actually swerved around me, and I got pinned on the actual guardrail. But look, if the semi hit me, there's no question that, you know, the semi driver and the whole people around that accident, the semi driver couldn't believe that he missed me. And it was an odd situation. I had witnesses on the front end of the accident because there was three cars and a truck involved, and everyone got out fine, luckily. But there was two witnesses, one at the front, one at the back, that came up to me, and it was crazy. You know, things were happening fast then, but they all had the same dream of this accident. And it was very odd that there was a common denominator there, and a lot of people had a dream about, you know, these three cars and a truck having. But the highway got shut down. There was emergency crews there. It was traumatic for me, and my family and people involved with that. So my natural reaction with my body went into numbness, and that's like a coping mechanism. You know, like, if you wake up tomorrow, Steph, and you go out to the wilderness and you stumble across a big fucking bear, your body is going to go into a default coping mechanism of being numb for you to survive, right? It's for you to get out. So that's what my body did. It just went numb, and I knew straight away that there was stuff to work with there, because it was a pretty traumatic experience, especially for my kids and my wife and all that, because of the death of my mother was so fresh still, and then that brought up a lot. So, you know, what to think of that is, you know, everyone will think differently of it, but, you know, for me it was just a very profound and odd thing that I was experiencing, especially moving into the death industry, which I want to be working in, was having an experience like that was, you know, you can't put words on it.
I want to go back to how you're going to start working in the death industry, but I got stuck on a little fact and I have to clear this up. So you said that 3 people had a dream of this accident? You're the 3 witnesses? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. There was 2 at the front, 1 at the back of the accident. They all had the same dream, and they were in shock. You know, everyone was in shock at that point. And, you know, them coming up to me and going, holy fucking shit, I've been dreaming of that. And then the 3 of them were together going, what? Talking about the exact same dream to the detail and how vivid it was. Yeah, so take that as you will. You know, whatever your belief system is will give you the answer to that. But for me, you know, I wasn't... It didn't, you know, it's not the craziest thing I've heard. You know, I definitely believed it, that they never knew each other, never met each other, and here we were, survived a pretty traumatic accident, and they all had the same dream.
Do you feel like your mom was helping you?
Yeah, I believe Jules was there. I believe Jules was there for sure. Yeah, It was a crazy situation. Initially, I didn't actually remember it. You know, like I just remember I was listening to Bob Marley going all around in my hometown, and then fucking this car came out and I was like, fuck. And then that was it. I just remember seeing her and speeding up, and then I was stopped, pinned on the guardrail, and I was like, holy shit, people were kind of ripping me out of it, petrol going everywhere. And then it wasn't until days after I had trouble sleeping, and went and saw my therapist. I started to actually remember those moments of seeing the truck and the car shaking and how close it came. And so, without a doubt, Mum was there. And that stillness that was happening, that was like, you know, it gets me thinking of like people that die unexpectedly. Do they experience that stillness before they die? It's like that. How close you are to the veil. You know, you're in between these worlds in some sense. So it's an interesting conversation, that, and it's something that, you know, who's ever going to prove that, right? So it begs the question of, you know, what happens when someone unexpectedly dies? Do they get put into this realm of stillness between, you know, both worlds, or how does it slow down? Why is there a similarity between birth, death, and near-death experiences? I know that there's a lot of docos on it and whatnot, but it's begging to be talked about more, that's for sure, I think.
Tell me about what are you going to be doing in the death industry?
Well, it hasn't completely landed. I'm definitely going to be walking beside people through their grief, bereavement, and loss. I know that. You know, I could see myself, you know, just because I am a qualified funeral director, that that's something that does interest me in terms of gaining experience in that. But right now it hasn't landed. I know, you know, it's the first time since studying it 6 years ago. As Mum described, you know, when she was dying, she said, you know, you do realize this is your apprenticeship, right? Which kind of blew me out of the water. So the fascination has been there since I was being a young boy. So it just really landed to me, and it's the first time I've really felt like I've arrived home within this industry. So right now I'm not letting my mind create an outcome or what it should look like. So I'm just going to stay being creative and do things that really juice me up and make me feel happy. So, but I could imagine myself, you know, because it's a big movement here in the Northern Rivers where I'm living. So I think initially I'll just gain more experience. I'll just probably study more and gain more experience, and then I'll just see where it takes me. But without a doubt, you know, that's the direction I'm going, which is really relieving when you find something that, hey, that's kind of where your path is, and who knows how long that path will go for. But it excites me to be able to be invited into that industry. It's more people need to get into it, I think, and then it needs to be like, look what you're doing. You know, you're creating conversation around death and dying and loss. Like, it has so much impact. It's so rich. There's so many things that come with it. So I think more people that come into the game of the death industry that are doing it differently, you know, I think bringing back cultural practices and whatever else, I think it's amazing. So well done to you, Steph, too, to be creating these conversations, you know. And I'm sure after podcasts, there's you know, you'd be feeling full in some sense of, you know, that there's connection there, and you know, you're doing it a world of justice, Steph. So good on you.
Well, thank you for being a part of it too. With that, do you have any like resources for people as far as books or other podcasts that you've listened to?
Resources. So there's a book that I've read. It's called The Intimacy of Death and Dying, and I'm about to put out some links on my social page of resources of, you know, all that sort of stuff. But my advice would be, you know, if there's curiosity there, then follow that. Follow the breadcrumbs, right? Don't not follow the breadcrumbs. They're there for a reason, and there's a whole bunch of stuff online. You know, if you follow me and then look at our followers, there's a whole community there of people willing to help and have resources there. But, you know, the biggest resource is you, in my eyes. I think that you've got a lot of the answers already within you. So, you know, you can read all the books and don't get me wrong, they're powerful, and it's beneficial for someone to up level and learn. But, you know, if you're looking for any resource, then I think you should be looking for that within. And like I said before on the podcast, is allocating that time for you and follow those breadcrumbs, because they're there for a reason.
I like that. That is so true. Nobody really stops. We don't stop to take the time to, like you said, put ourselves first, and then to look within ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, because, you know, you can do all that. You can read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, you need to be knocking on your internal door. That's
just a tool. That's a tool for me to be like, oh, I'm going to learn how somebody else does it, and I don't have to work on me doing it.
Right. And that's good, because what, you know, ultimately, what is that? That's like, is that a form of avoidance? What is that? That's really interesting, because, you know, you can get, it's like, put it this way, it's like a fitness guru. People can get addicted to anything, whether it's, you know, getting fit, eating right. There can always be excessive stuff with it. So you know, I'm no genius with this sort of stuff, you know, but I do know that a lot of the answers that people are looking for are already there. And maybe you do need some help along the way in terms of, you know, learning how to read your internal map. But, you know, starting to show up for yourself, I think that's the greatest resource that you can do, because there's a lot of stuff that you will realize through that.
All right. So last question, I'm going to wrap it up. You talked about therapy. I always ask people if you've been to therapy. So do you recommend therapy?
I recommend therapy, yeah, without a doubt. But it's, you know, it's not for everybody, and it's working out what works for you. I like therapy because I like seeing someone who's trained and who's professional in their field and can really break down what is going on with you, instead of, you know, where I live at the moment, there's a lot of, in Byron Bay, if anyone's familiar with it, it's there's a lot of alternative stuff happening. And that there's a time and place for that. But if you're basing yourself off, you know, things that are, you know, Venus is ascending to Mars, and that's why I'm feeling that way, is a bit risky, because I think in therapy,
it's 10 o'clock.
What happens is that they hold you accountable. And I think that if anyone, you know, can be accountable for them and their emotions and their well-being, I think that's powerful. And that's what therapy has really taught me, is that it's made me accountable for me. And it's not like, you know, I'm going to shift all that responsibility out to the galaxy because of the moon's full. You know, like, fuck. You know, if that's what you're doing, then that's risky for me. So I think it's a juggling act. I think it's like, you know, it's a you know, I use a lot of modalities, but without a doubt, seeking professional help through therapy is good. Some, you know, people that are going to create tools for you, give you accountability, and is not going to, you know, like, oh, Brent, let's not feel this. Why don't you just take this pill, because that's what I've been taught to give you. And I'm sure with, you know, different cases out there in terms of getting medicated, absolutely, it's necessary, but, you know, it's not for everybody.
All right. Well, there's a lot more that I'd like to hear, but I think I'll just go check out your account and continue to keep reading your writing, which is very beautiful. You're a very good writer. Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Parentless Podcast is recorded in Phoenix, Arizona. Find us on social media and most major podcast platforms. Music provided by Colin Lococo and the Revolving Birds. Studio and editing provided by Back Home Media and Ian Relaford. Check out one of the many shows on our network. I am your host, Stephanie Relaford.